And now, our feature presentation.
The best in the world is right here, right now.
Whether you like it or don't like it, pal, learn to love it.
Ladies and gentlemen.
All right, listen up.
Now it's our time to step forward. It's time to bring the NWA back into the spotlight.
I was thinking that it might be a good idea if you and I formed an alliance.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Attention, everyone. Welcome to the greatest wrestling program in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? Stop what you're doing and listen.
It's the Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts Kevin Frazier, DKM, and JCap.
Man, I was all fired up to talk about By Any Means Necessary. That show was looking jacked. I was excited about it. And then the strangest thing happened. WWE decided to start a new wrestling promotion by eliminating half of its roster, former stars of NXT. And I figured we would talk about it. So, of course, you see some of the familiar faces and not such a familiar face. Of course, we got Kevin Frazier, the former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion. We've got DKM. And, of course, Jaden, with no logo this time, is joining us to talk NWA, but more importantly, to talk about some of these WWE releases. How you doing, fellas?
Better than a lot of WWE former wrestlers.
I don't know about that, DK. They still probably got more in their bank account than all of us put together.
Yes.
I said some of them. Not all.
But your boy Kev's doing good out here, man. A couple of these guys, at least one of these guys I know for sure, I hold a couple victories over, and I think I don't mind giving a alternate perspective on all this stuff. But anyways, yeah. Hey guys, good to see you guys in the chat today.
Jaden, how you doing, buddy?
I'm here. I haven't hit the ladder yet, but I'm doing all right, I guess.
And I do want to say what's up to everyone in the chat. Ron's in the house. He wants to see Biff Busick show up in the NWA. He's already on top of it, folks. We got James H. Jackson in the house. How you doing, James? Willie Bowen is here. Terry McDermott's here. Sean Mega's here. It's like a roll call. You guys all showed up. And Jaden, your pal Kakushi's here.
Yeah, you know what? I know that guy. I don't like him at all.
You're not the only one.
I think the feeling is mutual.
Yeah. Well, you guys should hug it out. You know, that's what they used to do back in the day.
Kokushi has always been kind to the modern day hero, so I got no problems with him.
The only thing we probably agree with is how good the modern day hero is.
Oh, jeez.
we got to come. Hey, man, I'll be happy to be the bridge builder.
Hey, Kakushi, you got to take it easy, bro. I'm gonna have to block you if you keep going that route.
Yeah, we got to keep it classy in here.
Very, very classy. Okay, so I mean, look, like I said, we're gonna get to By Any Means Necessary because I really feel like that show was a great step in the right direction for the NWA. But I mean, the news is breaking, and I would be remiss if we didn't at least acknowledge what's going on with the WWE right now. They have released several names already, and more are expected as the night continues. I'm trying to pull up a decent list here of some of the names.
I have one if you need it.
Oh, go for it, please.
All right. So far, officially confirmed, as far as Fightful Select is concerned, is Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux. Frankie Monet, who most people would know as, Talia Valkyrie. Ember Moon, Oni Lorcan, and what was a surprise to me, B-Fab, who just got called up to SmackDown as part of Hit Row. Jesse Kamea, Camea, Kamea. I don't know. Seda Ramir, Trey Baxter, Katrina Cortez, Jeet Rama, Grand Metalik, Lindsay Dorato,
Lindsay
Dorato, whatever.
I figured the Spanish guy got it wrong.
Sometimes I do things intentionally, sometimes I don't. You always have to figure out which one it is. Probably the big surprise on the list, Nia Jax. Keith Lee.
That was my big surprise.
Considering the way they've been using him or not using him, I can't say I'm any more surprised. I'm more surprised about Karrion Kross than him.
Wow.
Harry Smith, who did one dark match. Mia Yim. And Eva Marie, who they hired in October of 20, didn't debut until June of 21. Put her in a horrible angle with Doudrop, and then kept Doudrop and released her. So that's the official list as of this last update.
Well, I know kind of a couple of them actually. Mia Yim has worked for Dog. Harry Smith has worked for Dog. Biff Busick, or was he Orny Lorcan? He's worked for Dog. And I gave Lindsay Dorado his first break many, many years ago. And he's also worked for Dog later for Dr. Zirconium. There are a couple I know personally, some really good talent. Keith Lee and Mia Yim are married. Karrion Kross and Scarlett are married. Really sad that both spouses lose their job at the same time around the holiday. Kind of a sad time.
I do believe they get paid through their 90-day no-compete clause. No one's been able to confirm that for me, but
they still get paid up to that 90-day clause, except for Scarlett apparently only has 30 days.
Well, any of the Strictly Next talent only has 30 days. And then main roster talent has 90 days if they remember to redo their contract, which apparently they have forgotten once or twice. And so it's almost I don't know if B-Fabs was redone or not, but it was almost sad that she was brought up to have her contract redone, and then
was B-Fab the really tall? Was it the girl?
B-Fab was the girl in Hit Row with the long
braid. Yeah. Yep.
I mean, she was very new and very green, but I don't know. It is just surprising to me that I'm not surprised at the release anymore. I mean, over this year, they've released enough talent to, somebody said, make another promotion.
I said that.
That was true.
And it's one of those, with the news of ROH that we talked about last week, it's a hard time for some of these wrestlers. Now, hopefully the talented ones will find places and still rise. The not so talented ones will be regulated back to the indies wherever they can get booked. But we'll see how it goes. I don't know. Kevin, what are your thoughts? You have a different view as a former talent.
I would say, there's two names on the list that I've actually wrestled would be Ember Moon and Keith Lee, who I know them personally. Both I wouldn't necessarily call them friends, but definitely people that I would consider acquaintances, because anytime you wrestle with somebody, it automatically, especially like Keith Lee and I wrestled a few times. But honestly, I don't see any names on this list that, in my opinion, for the company are like big time or like game changers. I think you have some potential on this list. Like I think, of course, obviously the first two names that stand out are Keith Lee and Karrion Kross. They have a lot of potential. I think Eva Marie is probably kind of, I don't necessarily believe they had like huge plans for her anyways. It was probably there was probably mutual benefit for her in terms of just keeping her name around so she can get into more movies. So I don't see her release as like, oh God, I think she's very independent in terms of she'll be just fine whether she's in wrestling or not.
She's not a wrestler.
No, she's a
personality.
Yeah, she's a character. But actually, I think she's a better actress than a wrestler. To be honest, I've seen her, and I think I saw her in one movie. She's actually pretty good, honestly, and she's more believable in the movies than she is in the ring. Which is, hey, I mean, it's worked out really good for Batista. I'm a little surprised by the Hit Row person, but again, they probably were looking for some kind of improvement from her, and they probably didn't see it, and there just wasn't a reason to keep her. But I also think you're really not looking at any of these names here. And again, I can tell you why I believe that Karrion Kross and Keith Lee, and like I was talking to Jay offline, there are probably elements to this that we're obviously not privy to. But if I were just to say, in their progression alone, just watching them progress on television, they left a lot to be desired in terms of, probably what was expected out of them. I think you had a huge push for Karrion Kross on NXT, and honestly, he was never good. Never was he ever the best part of the show. I felt like he had a great entrance. He had a valet, and he just was the same from the minute he got there. And once you took the valet and you took the ring entrance away and you threw him out there on the WWE TV, it was like, okay. And I take a wrestler, case in point, like a Daniel Bryan. He doesn't need ring entrance. He doesn't need cool gear. You just put him in the ring and guarantee you he's going to get over. And again, I'm not comparing everybody to like a Hall of Famer, but I'm also saying that, there's an element that I think a lot of these wrestlers were people they had high hopes for that maybe didn't pan out. Like I think Frankie Monet never really latched on, like never connected really. And I felt like she was out of shape from the minute she got there. So, all in all, like I know we talk about how it's a sad day and all that stuff, but most of these wrestlers on here, this was a huge thing for them and a huge privilege. And somebody like myself who never had a contract run with WWE, I'd take their spot. I'd take what they experienced any day, any of them. And I guarantee you they would say the same thing, because it's a privilege to take that next step. And it's definitely a lot harder than people think. And so for me, it's kind of more of like, hey, congrats, like you did make it. This doesn't mean it's the end of the road. It's just probably more than anything, just business.
I want to latch on to something Kevin said real quick, because otherwise I'll forget.
Real quick before you get there. Hey, Kevin, be really careful, because your phone, I see your credit card there. I don't want you to accidentally flash that on the screen.
Oh, okay. Sure. Carry on, DK.
Real quick, Kevin, what's those 3 digits on the back again?
Anyway.
Thanks. I just got it right there.
Seriously, though, I want to latch on something Kevin said. I mean, Keith Lee, Karrion Kross. And I want to talk about how people are presented and what difference that makes. Now, both Karrion Kross and Keith Lee were over pretty big in NXT. Whether you like them in the ring, you like their style, those are opinions. They can be credible or not credible, but they're basically opinions. And so, but they were over with that crowd. and they were booked in a certain way, and they were presented in a certain way. But when they got called up to the main roster, they were not presented in the same way. I mean, Karrion Kross, first match out there, he loses in 2 minutes to Jeff Hardy. And, Jeff Hardy doesn't beat anybody nowadays. So, and I'm going to throw this one to Jayden, which I threw to Kevin last time. So, Jayden, how important is presentation as far as getting fans to react?
Very, very important. It's very important. You can shine up a turd if you try hard enough. And presentation can make a huge difference on whether somebody gets over. Entrance and is so important. The entrance music, the look of the gear. I mean, you can take the greatest wrestler in the world and put him in a trash bag, and he ain't gonna do nothing. Give him no gear, no push, anything. It's really a joint venture. You have to know how to promote them, how to present them. I tell it all the time. There's a lot of wrestlers who come out and they come out with this music and like, oh, I love this music. It pumps me up. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't do shit for the audience. This song does nothing to get you over. It's not about pumping you up. It's about pumping the audience up. They need to know who you are and what you are in the first 3 bars of the song. As soon as that comes out, they need to know and be able to ready to get excited about it. And a lot of wrestlers don't understand that. They'll use absolutely generic gear from high spots that you'll see 15 wrestlers do. They'll come out with stuff that they bought at the Halloween store thinking that they're great wrestlers, and again, it's nothing. You can have a fake plastic crown, doesn't mean you're a king. If you're not really willing to invest in the wrestler and you're not willing to invest in yourself, then the presentation is very huge. I'm also looking over the roster. A lot of this roster is kind of older. They've been around for a while and they're on the older side. Is the WWE maybe looking to get rid of some of the wrestlers, and the NXT was really guilty for this. A lot of the older wrestlers that have been around and just trying to create their whole new stars.
Well, I mean, for certain, we knew that things were going to be changing for the WWE. There was going to be a youth movement. They were looking at changing things up. We saw that with the initial cuts, but then when they reimagined NXT and brought it to more of a actual developmental federation for the WWE, we knew that things were going to change. We knew it was going to be different. And I mean, when you look at it, like, I think the cost of doing business, Kevin alluded to this earlier, the cost of doing business during a global pandemic is pretty severe. It's wild because there's so much news that it's coming out right now, and the WWE just reported earnings today that they had revenues of $256 million for the quarter, not for the year, for the quarter. And now that sounds like a ton of money for us, right? And when you hear those numbers, you think, well, geez, they're just being greedy. But as a business, your revenues aren't your profits. Your revenues are just the money that you made. So when you start looking at the grand picture, like, we don't know how much it costs to run the WWE. I mean, I'm sure if you look at the financials with a fine-tooth comb, you could probably find something there. But with NXT, and a lot of these talents came from NXT, they were trimming the fat, getting rid of the excess. And I'm surprised more names haven't been announced, and maybe we'll hear some more names later. And I kind of disagree with Kevin. And, he followed the NXT product a heck of a lot closer than I did. So maybe he's onto something. But just from my personal experiences, a guy like Keith Lee or a guy like Karrion Kross, or even as Ron Gibson asked about Harry Smith, I mean, I feel like these guys will be stars just about anywhere else they go. And I don't understand the rationale of letting someone go that has so much potential. Now, I think any of those 3 guys will be the next John Cena or the next Rock or the next Stone Cold Steve Austin? No, I don't. But I definitely feel like they could have contributed to the success of the WWE in the long term. and could have helped been maybe the next Randy Orton or the next, Drew Galloway or somebody who's held a significant spot on the roster for multiple years and could have helped keep the promotion going. What do you guys think?
Well, I also want to make a point too, and this is something that, like we spoke about offline as well, just about business, that we also don't know what the environment was like in terms of a working environment for some of these names. If we're going to talk about, say, maybe the ones that don't make sense, a lot of times, and we all heard the stories and we all know it's true because, Jay, like I told you, like you could hire the most talented person and, I'm dealing with this at my own current business is, we have one of the most talented, charismatic, like employees, but, her attitude, man, like makes it really, really hard. And I even spoke with her, and her manager and I talked today, and it's like, I feel like we're on a timetable with this. Like, this is not going to last. This is only going to last so long. So as good as she is, we need to be ready to, be ready to replace that spot, especially because she's a high producer. And again, sometimes the sum is greater than the parts. And again, I wouldn't doubt that some of this has to do with, relations and interactions and some of that stuff. Now, I'm going to tell you firsthand, like Keith Lee, from my perspective, was never hard to work with. I mean, he put over a 160-pound guy like myself at the time. So it's not like I have a problem with working with him, but that was 10 years ago. Things may be different now. And again, Karrion Kross, I also will say and present somewhat of an other side to this is that is a wrestler that good if you have to put all of the presentation around them? If they have to have a great entrance music, if they have to have the hot chick, if they can't cut a promo and somebody else has to guide them through a promo, like if you have to do all of that, Judice, like are they really that good? And that's kind of where I lean with Karrion Kross. Keith Lee, on the other hand, is a little bit different because I think he's good on the mic. I think he's really charismatic. And if I were to just go with my gut instinct, no pun intended, I think it was the weight and the physique issue with Keith Lee that might have been the big issue there. But those are speculations, and those are really the only two names on this list that I really think the WWE could lose a little bit by losing these guys.
All right, I want to say two things, and then we'll get. I'll let Jaden or DKM get back into it. First thing, Willie brings up a good point. Remember when the WWE released Deonna Purrazzo? She's in Impact Wrestling and is a former Knockouts champion. I think there's something to that, and I think obviously that's going to happen quite a bit. However, I mean, we know that AEW has signed many, many people. We know that Impact has signed many, many people. And now with one more place not hiring and releasing talent, it's going to be a lot harder for some of these folks to find jobs and to get back to it. The one other point I wanted to make to Kevin, and we're just talking because we're pals and everyone's here listening, but isn't there room for somebody like Karrion Kross with the hot chick, with the promo, his lack of promo, but his ability to get over with the fans? I mean, it worked in Impact. It worked in Lucha Underground. Don't you think it could work elsewhere?
Absolutely. Like I'm not saying. Remember, the reason I'm talking about Karrion and Keith Lee because those are the two guys that I feel like were the biggest difference makers potentially on the list. I'm only trying to say that, like, I'm trying to give a perspective of why they might have released him. Not that I don't think he could have been great. And to speak to the point, like, imagine a rivalry, a no frills rivalry with him and Timothy Thatcher. Like that would be fantastic to watch. Or Walter, like, Jesus, God Almighty, like Karrion Kross and Walter. No promos, just just go out there and fight. And that would be a lot of fun to watch. So I'm going to tell you right now, like, I think he has a lot of potential and there's a lot there. But I'm also saying here are the areas that if I were to say, okay, well, let me try to justify this and not just be like, oh, it's just the WWE is bad and they're the bad guy. These might be some of the reasons that you could look to, because they're really those two really are hard. You have to nitpick to find a reason why you would even let go of talent like that. And no doubt, if I'm AEW, I'm releasing some of my own guys to pull these two guys into my roster, because I really feel like they would fit very good into the AEW roster, because they're moving into a more work rate brand of company, very much like WCW would have been.
I actually am a little worried. I'm a little worried about Karrion Kross or I guess Killer Kross now, and Scarlett Bordeaux. I can't see them going to AEW with what was the Jackal's name there? The guy who used to work for Impact and now is managing Kenny Omega. What's his name again? Yeah, Don Callis. He had a horrible case of scarlet fever, and that didn't work out too well. And then Impact, same thing. Because of that scarlet fever, they didn't quite leave on great terms of Impact. And if I remember right, Scarlett Bordeaux had to get a job selling sunglasses or something like that to just make ends meet, because of what Impact was paying. Where are they really going to go? I mean, they'll probably really do well. I think Killer Kross worked for MLW in the past, but that's not exactly going to be filling their coffers with gold. And then there's Japan, which I think they might do really well with, especially All Japan Pro Wrestling or Noah, but they don't pay quite what they used to. With Impact, it's fine, but again, I don't see them going back. And then Ring of Honor, if they do stay in business, and after looking at the financials of Sinclair Broadcasting, I'm not sure that's really going to happen. I guess it's useful for them because now they're independent talent that can be signed and work for whatever 3 months or whatever they tape in Ring of Honor.
My interest is piqued. What is Scarlet? I know it's Scarlet. It's a reference to Scarlet. But what do you mean by Scarlet Fever? Please.
There's a sexual harassment suit going on from Scarlet about Don Callis apparently offering to push them if she did certain favors, allegedly.
Oh.
Okay, and then what you said that was with Don Callis. Now, who was the other one that had?
Impact is when Don Callis was an executive Impact, and Scarlett sued them both.
Or Don left Impact not on good terms, so.
Interesting. This is interesting to me that AEW, being somewhat woke, would have a guy like that on their main program.
Well, some of their executive presidents still think the world is flat and that women are inferior because the Bible says so. So,
interesting.
But I want to get to what James H. Jackson Jr., our good friend James, said, and that Jay's had up here for a thankful bit. Someday Tony Khan may have to go through this. He can't keep signing or keep hiring all these people. And someday even AEW may have to do a mass release. And I don't think we'll see a mass release anytime soon. I do think we'll see contracts not renewed, especially with a lot of we've seen it to a small extent with like Danny Limelight and others where, they sign them small, short-term, I think, appearance contracts, and then they either keep them or they let them go. But, yeah, Tony Khan's got money to play with, but it's certain point you have to be careful. A lot of people are dogging WWE because they're making quote unquote record profits or whatever. Well, guess what? That's what you're in business for.
Right.
Well,
and when we talk about Japan, one of the reasons we're bringing up, or Jaden's bringing up All Japan or Noah, is because New Japan's kind of in the same boat as ROH. They were really good to the wrestlers all through the pandemic, and now they got a serious money problem.
That's why you're seeing a lot of talents come to the United States too, which, it's kind of a benefit if you're a fan of wrestling because, For example, November 15th, I'll be in Riverside watching New Japan Strong, and I'm going to see talents like Taishi Imori, I think. I saw the list, and I was really excited. They're bringing in Jonathan Gresham. They're bringing in a lot of guys, but there's talents from New Japan that'll be on that card. So it'll be interesting. And to what DK was saying, it's, we are seeing numbers of their revenues, their sales, but that doesn't necessarily tell you what their business did. Again, that information is available if you know what you're looking for. And you can go through the tax documents because they're a publicly traded company. You could see these numbers, but again, we don't know what they're actually making unless you're going through that stuff. And the other part of that too is, like with Ring of Honor not being in action, that's going to affect a lot of people. But nevertheless, a lot of these guys, if you go back 10 years, there weren't as many options to get into pro wrestling as there are today. So, yes, there are only two really big companies out there, with Impact a very close third, but still a very distant third. But, you can go work, like Willie Bowen suggested. There's Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Now, they're not offering contracts, no, and the money won't be the same. But, somebody like Karrion Kross coming to the United Wrestling Network, I know Marquez would love that. And they could do that in 3 different states. And also their primetime live, and that goes for everyone on the roster. Talking about the NWA, that carousel that they have, that roster of being able to bring talent in for a taping or two and then sending them on their way. Again, this would work perfectly for that group because, again, if Karrion Kross and Scarlett are available on December the 4th, and I'm not saying they are because obviously Karrion's still under contract, but if they were and they showed up, I mean, people would mark out, and you could use them for another pay-per-view, and you'd have these stars on your show, and then, they could quietly fade away, and no one would know the difference. At least that's what I thought.
Well, on some of these people, I think we're going to figure out how much they actually like the wrestling business.
I like that, DK.
I mean, seriously.
Oh, we don't have to be soft on these guys, man. And girls.
I mean, some of these people probably will leave wrestling. I mean, honestly, I don't see Nia Jax going anywhere. She was a model beforehand. A lot of people don't realize she actually was part of the diva movement, and they were hiring models, not wrestlers. So, I mean, I don't really see her going anywhere to be a wrestler. I don't know, Jaden, what do you think?
Nia Jax? No, not really, but that happens to a lot of people. I've heard many people said they used to love professional wrestling until they got their dreams accomplished and went to the WWE, and then they became sports entertainers, and it killed professional wrestling for them. It can very happen. I know a couple of them that I know personally. One of them's got his degree as a public educator and was working as a teacher before he got signed by the WWE. That's always something to fall back on, and that's why you need an education, something to fall back on, because this could happen at any time, or even an injury. But Championship Wrestling from Hollywood is a good opportunity. If you really do love wrestling, the opportunities are there. I mean, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, the NWA, who I, for some reason, forgot about both of them when I was talking about places to go. If Ring of Honor does stay around, that's something they can do. They could not sign a contract and do lots of things and have a lot of fun. Independent dates in between, MLW, not my style of wrestling, but that GCW. I'm sure there's a couple that can make some money there. There's a Dog. They can come wrestle for Dog. I'm sure. Lindsay Dorado, you want to come home? Give me or Dr. Zirconia a call. We'll see what we can do.
And I think that's an important thing to point out. What you just said there, Jaden, is that the independents are going to be flourishing with talent. If there's an independent wrestling promotion out there, you really can lock up some big names on your shows. And let me rephrase that, not lock up, but I mean, have these guys on your shows. I don't know. it really does baffle me that so many talent were released all at once, and this isn't the first time this year that it's happened, let alone since the pandemic. But like Dave Scooby said, some of the more well-known talent can possibly make a run on the indies, like Matt Cordova is doing right now. And I mean, there's no probably, let me try that again. There is no better example of somebody on the independent scene taking advantage of their WWE stardom like Matt Cordova. He's literally working with Impact. He's getting dates of Game Changer Wrestling. Again, that's not my particular style of wrestling either, Jaden, but it looks like people are really getting behind him, and he's generating heat for the company. He's bringing recognition to the company, and it really is wild to me to think that there's this much talent that's going to be available, and the promotions out of there, New Japan Strong. Like, I feel like each time we start bringing it up again, we're leaving someone else out. Like, there's New Japan Strong here in the United States. There's Pro Wrestling Guerrilla in Southern California. There's Future Stars of Wrestling in Las Vegas. There's a lot of places that are doing more wrestling now than they've ever done before. And I do feel like there's going to be a lot of opportunities for a lot of these guys, but it's wild to me because not only, we're talking about the WWE releases. Just last week we had the Ring of Honor releases, and then there's talent being released from MLW. Everybody's kind of like Kevin said, experiencing that COVID effect, and it's definitely changing the way professional wrestling is happening in this country. DK, what are your thoughts?
Well, actually, I've been looking at their investment information. And so, quick financial lesson. Revenue is what you bring in. Operating income is what you made when you're operating at revenues minus your operating expenses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I actually do P&Ls at my job, so I can help you if you need help here.
Yeah. And then don't let my 33 hours of accounting in any way intimidate you. Anyway, and then net income, which is that's, if you've ever heard the phrase, the bottom line. That's when, all the extraordinary and uncommon and one-time things get factored in. So their bottom line net income was for the quarter, the third quarter, 3 months, was $43.5 million, which was a slight decrease from a year ago. A year ago was $48.2 million.
That's interesting.
Their operating income was $64 million, which was a 1% increase over last year. So that's basically saying it was the same.
And in the business world, if you're not increasing, because expenses increase, so things are not as cheap this year. Things are more expensive this year than last year. So in a sense, they really didn't make money.
Well, they did not increase how much money they brought in. I mean, look, I don't think any of us would take $43 million and run and jump and scream. But they are a large organization. And look, again, if business's reason to exist is not to give people employment, it is not to make the world a better place. It's not to sit around, hold hands, and sing Kumbaya. It's to make money, and primarily make money for the owners, because they're the ones taking the risk. I mean, I worked in a pizza place one time, and I remember the manager telling me, the money I get paid is the money that I ring up every time somebody eats, because I work the register a lot. It's the money I ring up every time someone, comes and buys a buffet or some pizza. That is what's paying. There's no magic tree or magic account that just sprouts money. And so, kind of being a little bit cold here, but unfortunately that's just the way the world is. Jay's a small businessman. Kevin knows that if people stop coming to the gym where he's the manager, at some point they'll look at him and go, Kevin, we got two options, and neither one of them include you working here.
Like that, huh?
Well, I mean, I'm just saying that if all of a sudden his membership cut in half, then it's like, do you want to give us your notice, or do you want us to let you go?
Yep. It's better on your resume that you left than if we fired you.
And with that being said, and I'm going to name drop another wrestling promotion here, the reality of wrestling is that it is a business, right? Yes. People who grow up to be professional wrestlers are living a dream. It's a dream job for a lot of them. It's what they've wanted since they were little. But remember, it's still a business. And although DK was being a little bit cold right there, that's just the honest truth. Like, this is what it is. Now, also with business too, one of the key things you can do as a business owner is recognize treasure when other people see trash. And I know that sounds very cold, but I don't mean it to sound that way. But there are new and more wrestling promotions. Like I said, there's more opportunity these days than there might have ever been in the past. And like another promotion that we hadn't talked about yet, but I tweeted about, Jeannie Buss, who is the daughter of the late owner of the Lakers. Now, she's part owner of the Lakers now, but she's also part owner of Women of Wrestling Superheroes, WOW Superheroes. And that's the wrestling promotion that signed Tessa Blanchard. With all of these women who are now free agents, not the least is the Frankie Monet, Taya Valkyrie, who is literally 30 days. She's a free agent. She can go anywhere she wants. Do you guys see WOW trying to pick up some of these now displaced WWE talents like Nia Jax or Scarlett or Taya Valkyrie?
I can see them looking at like Ember Moon.
Ember Moon too, yeah.
And I can see them looking at Taya Valkyrie. I will admit, kind of go with what Kevin said. She might need to get into a little bit better shape. Or
both of them. I'm going to tell you straight up, Ember Moon got let go because she's out of shape. I don't know that for a fact, but my wife, who is a great barometer of these things, when we got married, I watched wrestling. We started dating, I was watching wrestling, especially NXT, and Ember Moon was on there. And a few months ago, it had to be earlier this year, she was like, wow, she's put on a whole lot of weight. And this is an athletic, aesthetic business, man. It's not, it just is what it is. And again, it's another one of those, this may not be what you want to hear, but you can't tell me that you're not going to tell me. I'm going to tell you that actually really does matter, especially to a company like WWE, because there's no secrets here that your physique and the way you look is extremely important in that company. You have to live under a rock and not know anything about wrestling to not know that. So some of these things can be very visually apparent.
Right. I mean, Ember Moon suffered a major injury. She was out for over a year. And she did put on weight. And, Frankie was never, Taya was never a small person, likely never will be. But, she also got bigger. Does it matter to me if I'm running DKM's wrestling promotion? Probably not. But as Kevin says, it matters in the WWE. You can like it, not like it, doesn't matter. It's the way life is.
So, are we ready to talk about some NWA, guys? Because I feel like we've talked about this till it's done.
Yeah, I think we might have beaten this to death. Real quick, do you guys have anything else you want to add before we move on? Jaden, is there anything you want to talk about before we move on?
No, I think we pretty much hit everything on this. I wish everybody the best of luck if they're continuing wrestling. Have a lot of fun. Start enjoying the sport like you used to. And as again, for talent, I'm going to use a sports analogy here with the NHL. There is many a time somebody can play for a team and be considered a disaster, and then switch a team and all of a sudden become the greatest player that they've ever been and showed all their potential. Sometimes right now, just working for that company, the WWE, you might not have the right coaching or trainer or whatever you need to get where you are, and somebody else can just take that and tweak what you're doing and make you a big star out of it. That's why a lot of these guys leave the WWE, ensure they truly have potential. And that's also kind of why sometimes people leave the independents or the smaller leagues and get to the WWE and they just don't seem to flourish.
I'll add one thing to that. We were talking offline one time, and I was saying, one of the things I've liked about Bryan Danielson being in AEW, and I'm still not a huge AEW fan, but I do watch Bryan, I do watch Punk. But one of the things I said, I forgot what a good wrestler Bryan Danielson is, because he didn't do as much in the WWE of his style of wrestling. And it's almost like, oh wow, I remember this as part of the American Dragon now. Because honestly, I kind of forgotten. Kind of fell asleep. Or disagreeing with me, one of the two.
I'm just stretching.
Okay.
If you guys want to see, Bryan Danielson at his best, you can go on to YouTube and you can search Kevin Douglas versus Bryan Danielson or Daniel Bryan and get your fill of maybe his best match of all time.
What a good match. Well, anyway,
Kevin, when you say that,
let's go.
There's so much modesty there, and I do appreciate that about you.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, Daniel Bryan is the best wrestler we've seen at the turn of the millennia. We spoke about this, I think, in the chat. I mean, pound for pound, across the board, he's the best guy that's come out in 20 years. And that's just my opinion. And to me, it's just if I could pick any guy over the last 20 years that I would have liked to have wrestled and beaten, he would be the guy that I would choose. So, just calling it like I see it.
In case you didn't know, Kevin Douglas is the most modest person in the world. If you don't believe him, ask him. He's always bragging about how modest he is.
That's the truth.
I heard your original moniker was the Modest Day Hero, Kevin Douglas.
Yes, the Modest Day Hero. Yes.
Thanks again for tuning in to the Alliance Blog Podcast, a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you won't miss any future episodes? We'd also like to remind you that we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific on YouTube at the Alliance Blog. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, TikTok, and Twitch at the Alliance Blog. Remember, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is essentially your own. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.